Detective Marcus Harlow was no stranger to strange cases. But when he was called to investigate the disappearances at the old Sterling Hotel, something felt off from the start. The once grand structure loomed at the edge of town, abandoned for decades after a tragic fire. It was a local legend, a place of whispered stories and childhood dares. But lately, it was more than just a ghost story. People had gone missing, tourists, drifters, even a few thrill-seekers. No one ever came back. Marcus parked his car on the gravel-strewn driveway, the tires crunching under the weight of his doubts. The hotel stood silent, its windows shattered and its walls scarred by time and neglect. The air was thick with a musty scent, wine that clung to places long forgotten. The locals called it cursed, but Marcus was a man of reason. Curses didn't make people disappear. But as he stared at the faded Sterling Hotel, sign barely hanging onto the facade, he felt an undeniable pull, feeling that something was waiting inside. He entered through the main doors, which hung loosely on rusted hinges, and shined his flashlight around. Dust swirled in the air like tiny ghosts, dancing in the pale beam. The lobby was a decaying shell of its former glory. Toppled furniture, peeling wallpaper, and cobwebs draping the chandeliers like veils of mourning. But it was the silence that unnerved him, the kind of silence that held secret. Marcus pulled out the file on the missing people. A young couple, a retired teacher, a local urban explorer. All had vanished without a trace, their last known location, the Sterling Hotel. But as he examined the lobby closer, he noticed something odd. Footprints in the dust, leading deeper into the darkness. They were fresh, not more than a few hours old. Following the trail, Marcus ventured further into the hotel. The corridors twisted like a maze, each turn more disorienting than the last. There was a strange sensation in the air, like static before a storm, prickling at his skin. He checked his watch, but it had stopped, the second hand frozen in place. The deeper he went, the more time seemed to lose meaning. It was as if the hotel itself was swallowing him whole. Then he saw it. A figure at the end of the hallway, motionless and shrouded in shadow. Marcus called out, but the figure didn't move. As he approached, he realized it was not a person, but a mirror. All and ornate, standing out like an anachronism in the dilapidated setting. Something about it felt wrong, as if it didn't belong. Marcus stared into the mirror. For a moment, he saw not his reflection, but flickering images of people. A man in a suit, a woman in a red dress, a child holding a balloon. Trapped, reaching out as if pleading for help. And then they were gone, leaving Marcus staring at his own pale, bewildered face. The hotel was hiding something, and whatever it was far from ordinary. Marcus couldn't shake the image of the mirror. Faces of the missing people flashed in his mind like a slideshow from a nightmare. He pulled out his phone to take a picture. The screen was distorted, filled with static and lines, and his battery drained rapidly. Technology was failing him, as if the hotel itself rejected anything from the outside world. Moving cautiously, Marcus continued exploring, trying to map the layout in his head. But every hallway looked the same, each door a potential gateway to nowhere. He heard faint sounds, whispers, the soft hum of an old phonograph, and the occasional distant clatter of something unseen. It was as though the walls were alive with memories, replaying scenes from a time long gone. He entered a large ballroom, its once elegant ceiling now cracked and leaking. The dance floor was covered in debris, but Marcus noticed something strange. A circle of dust-free space at the center, like a void. It was as if someone or something had been standing there recently. He shivered, feeling the weight of unseen eyes on him. Marcus approached the spot cautiously, his mind racing. He knelt down, touching the ground, when suddenly the room grew colder and the lights flickered. A low, resonant hum filled the space, vibrating through the walls, and the air seemed to thicken. Before Marcus could react, the room changed. The decayed ballroom was gone, replaced by a vibrant, bustling scene. People in old-fashioned attire danced to the lively music of a grand orchestra, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. But something was off. Their movements were slightly jerky, like an old film reel skipping frames, and their faces were blurred, obscured by an ethereal fog. Marcus stumbled back, gripping his head as a wave of dizziness washed over him. Blinked, and the vision vanished as quickly as it had appeared. The ballroom was empty again. He was not alone. A figure stood at the far end of the room, watching him. It was a man in a tailored suit, his face pale and eyes hollow. "Who are you?" Marcus demanded, but the man remained silent. He seemed to flicker in and out of existence, like a ghost caught between worlds. Marcus tried to approach, but the figure stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. Frustrated and unnerved, Marcus knew he was on the brink of something beyond comprehension. The Sterling Hotel was not just a decaying relic. It was a gateway, a place where the past bled into the present, and the lost lingered, trapped between dimensions. The further Marcus ventured, the more the boundaries of reality seemed to fray. Every step felt like walking through quicksand, and the hotel's layout defied logic. Hallways looped back on themselves, and rooms that should have been connected were separated by impossible distances. It was as if the building were alive, shifting and reshaping itself to confuse him. He found a staircase leading downward, to a part of the hotel that wasn't on any blueprints. The basement. The air grew colder as he descended, each step creaking under his weight. At the bottom, a long, narrow corridor stretched into darkness, lined with old, tarnished mirrors on either side. Each one reflected not just Marcus, but other figures. Ghostly shapes trapped in the glass, moving independently of him. Marcus could feel the pull, an almost magnetic force drawing him toward a large iron door at the end of the hallway. It was covered in intricate carvings, symbols that hurt to look at for too long. It felt like a portal, something ancient and wrong, a boundary that was never meant to be crossed. As he touched the door, the metal felt unnaturally cold, almost burning his skin. A low rumble echoed through the hall, and the mirrors flickered to life, showing scenes from different times and places. Glimpses of other lives, other moments, all leading to this point. Marcus hesitated, but he knew he had no choice. He pushed the door open and stepped through. On the other side, he found himself in a world that defied explanation. It was like a distorted version of the hotel, twisted and fragmented, with staircases leading to nowhere and rooms floating in a void. The sky was a swirling mass of gray, and the air was thick, heavy with a sense of wrongness. It was a parallel dimension, a place where time and space had collapsed. People were there, the missing. They wandered aimlessly, lost and unaware, caught in an endless loop of their last moment. Marcus watched in horror as the young couple he had seen in the files appeared, endlessly replaying their final seconds before disappearing into the shadows. He called out to them, but his voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence. The realization hit him hard. They weren't just missing, they were trapped, prisoners of this fractured reality. And the hotel was the key, conduit between worlds, beating off those who dared to enter. Marcus navigated this nightmarish version of the Sterling Hotel, trying to make sense of its twisted geometry. Every corner he turned revealed new horrors. People forever caught in moments of terror, their faces frozen in expressions of fear and confusion. It was as if time had splintered, trapping them in a never-ending purgatory. He saw the retired teacher, Mrs. Thompson, wandering the hall with a vacant stare, her hands clutching a faded photograph of her family. Each time Marcus approached her, she would vanish, only to reappear somewhere else, endlessly repeating her actions as if following an unseen script. The air grew colder, and Marcus felt a presence watching him, something ancient and malevolent that thrived on the despair of the trapped souls. It was then that he saw the mirrors again, scattered throughout the dimension like windows back into the real world. They were the only connection between this realm and his reality, and each mirror showed a distorted version of the Sterling Hotel lobby. Marcus realized that these mirrors were more than just portals. They were traps. The hotel had lured people in with their own reflections, pulling them into this alternate dimension, feeding on their fears and memories. But if mirrors could bring them here, maybe they could also be the way out. With renewed determination, Marcus began searching for a way to use the mirrors to free the trapped souls. He theorized that breaking the mirrors could disrupt the link between the dimensions. But there was a risk. If he was wrong, it could sever the last connection these people had to the real world, dooming them forever. As Marcus moved from room to room, he gathered whatever he could use: pieces of metal, broken furniture, anything that might shatter the glass. The more he worked, the more the dimensions seemed to fight back. The walls warped and shifted, and the trapped souls began to react, their movements becoming more erratic, their faces twisting in fear and anger. Finally, he reached the largest mirror in the dimension, the same ornate one he had seen in the real hotel's hallway. This mirror was different, felt alive, pulsing with a dark energy. Marcus took a deep breath, raised his makeshift weapon, and struck the glass. The mirror shattered with a deafening crash, sending shards flying. The dimension around him trembled, and for a brief, terrifying moment, Marcus felt himself being pulled apart, as if he were being torn between two worlds. But then, everything went still. Marcus found himself back in the real Sterling Hotel, lying on the cold, dusty floor. The mirrors were gone, replaced by empty, cracked walls. As he staggered to his feet, he saw the missing people reappearing around him, disoriented but alive. They were back, pulled from the parallel dimension and returned to the world they thought they had lost. The hotel was silent once more, its dark secret shattered along with the mirrors. Marcus knew that the Sterling would never be safe. It was a place marked by tragedy and cursed by whatever force had turned it into a gateway between realities. But the people were free, and that was what mattered. As Marcus walked out of the hotel, the morning sun breaking through the clouds, he glanced back one last time. In one of the cracked windows, caught a glimpse of his own reflection, or at least he thought it was his. For just a second, the reflection seemed to smirk, a subtle but unsettling reminder that some things could never truly be put to rest. Marcus turned away, leaving the abandoned hotel and its haunting mysteries behind. But deep down, he knew that no matter how far he went, part of him would always remain within those walls, forever reflecting the darkness he had uncovered.